I never meant for any of this to happen. Not the boat, not the tourists, not the little fleet that ended up following me like a trail of ghosts across the bay. It all started on a Tuesday, a day so ordinary that it almost felt cruel when it turned on me. I remember coming home early from work. The air was heavy that day, thick with the smell of salt and gasoline from the docks. I had picked up a bottle of her favourite wine on the way, Merlot, the one she used to laugh about, saying it tasted like velvet and smoke. I thought I'd surprise her. God, what a fool I was for thinking that surprises were still a thing between us. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed wasn't her laughter. It was silence, the kind of silence that fills a house like fog, soft but suffocating. Her purse was on the table, shoes by the door. Everything said she was home, but something was off. I don't know why, but I felt it in my bones, a quiet panic creeping up my spine. I called her name once, then again, and then I heard it, the faintest whisper of movement upstairs, a muffled sound, a laugh that wasn't mine. I still see it sometimes, that image. The door half open, the sunlight slicing through the blinds, falling across tangled sheets, and the shape of two bodies, hers and his. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. Maybe she had, because in that moment I think something in me died. Not anger, not shouting, just a stillness. I didn't say a word. I closed the door quietly like you would after leaving a room you know you'll never return to. For days I walked the pier like a man without a name. The ocean was the only thing that made sense. Endless, indifferent, honest. And one evening, after too many beers and too few reasons to keep pretending, I saw it. An old, sun-bleached boat with peeling paint and a broken motor. She was a wreck like me. But something about her felt right. I bought her for next to nothing from an old fisherman who said she hadn't been out in years. The first few weeks were a blur of salt and sweat. I fixed her up piece by piece, learning as I went, sanding, painting, patching holes, cursing the stubborn engine that coughed more smoke than sound. I slept on deck some nights, listening to the waves slap against the hull, wondering what the hell I was doing. And yet, the sea started to change me. Every morning I'd wake with the sun, the horizon bleeding gold, the gulls screaming overhead. I'd take the boat out just far enough to lose sight of the shore. Out there, everything made sense. The betrayal, the loneliness. They didn't matter anymore. The sea didn't care who you were, only that you respected her moods. Then one day, a couple of tourists asked if I could take them out for a sunset cruise. I laughed and said I wasn't a tour guide, but they insisted. They paid me more than I'd made all month. So I did it again the next day. And again. Word spread. People liked the quiet, the stories I told, the way I knew where the dolphins swam at dusk. I started calling the boat Mara, after the woman I'd lost. Not as a wound, but as a reminder. The past belongs to the tide. Over time, Mara wasn't enough. I bought another boat, then another. Before I knew it, I had a small fleet, a handful of captains who'd once been lost in their own ways, now finding purpose in the sea like I did. Funny thing, how pain can become a compass. Sometimes I still think of that day. The door, the light, the silence. But it doesn't hurt like it used to. I don't think it ever really goes away, but it changes shape, softens with time, like driftwood worn smooth by the waves. Now, when the sun sets and the water burns orange and gold, I stand on the deck and watch the horizon. There's peace in it, not the kind you find, but the kind you build, plank by plank, wave by wave, and maybe that's what freedom really is. Not forgetting what broke you, but learning to sail anyway. Full version, self-redemption story. I never planned on any of this. Not the boats, not the business, not the quiet kind of peace I have now. It wasn't some grand design, it just happened, one tide at a time. It all started the day everything fell apart. I came home early, The kind of early that feels like a small rebellion, a chance to surprise the person you love, to make up for the late nights, the forgotten dinners. I'd even stopped by that little wine shop near the marina, the one that always smelled like oak and old promises. I bought a bottle of her favourite Merlot, the one she said reminded her of late summers and smoky nights. I still remember the sound the key made in the lock, that soft click that used to mean home. But that day it sounded different. When I walked in, the house was quiet, too quiet. No music, no laughter, just the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own heartbeat. I called her name. Once, twice. The third time I didn't even get the word out because I heard something upstairs. It wasn't the creak of a floorboard or the rustle of a curtain. It was a sound I knew too well. The sound of two people breathing too close together. When I opened that door, it was like stepping into a dream I couldn't wake from. The sunlight cut through the blinds, falling across tangled sheets and two bodies frozen in shock. She looked at me, and for a second I swear she wanted to speak, to explain, to apologize, to make it disappear. But I didn't give her the chance. I just walked out, closed the door behind me, quietly. Because some things don't need words. Silence says it all. After that, the days blurred together. I went to work, came home, stared at walls that suddenly felt too white, too clean, too empty. Nights were worse. Every sound in the dark was a memory trying to crawl back to life. So I started walking, down to the docks. Every evening, like a man drawn by something he didn't understand. The ocean was always there, endless, indifferent, alive. It didn't ask questions. It didn't care what I'd lost. It just moved day after day, as it always had. One night I found her. The boat that started it all. She was old, weathered, sitting half sunk at the edge of the pier. Paint peeling, ropes frayed, engine dead. But I couldn't stop looking at her. Maybe because I saw myself in that cracked hull, something broken, yes, but not beyond repair. I bought her from an old fisherman for almost nothing. He laughed when I handed him the cash. "She'll never float again," he said. "Neither will I told him. But I was wrong. About both of us. For weeks I worked on that boat. I scraped, patched, sanded, painted. I cursed every bolt, every leak, every blister that formed on my hands. Yet every night I went home with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. The first time I took her out, the engine sputtered and coughed, but the moment the wind caught her, I swear I felt her breathe again. We cut through the water, slow and steady, the sun falling behind us, painting the sea gold. It was quiet, not the kind of silence that haunts, but the kind that heals. I named her Mara. Not after the woman I lost, but after the memory of her, the ghost I was finally learning to forgive. At first, I'd just go out alone. Some days I'd fish. Some days I'd just drift, listening to the rhythm of the waves. There's a strange peace in being at the mercy of something so vast. The sea doesn't pity you. It doesn't pretend to understand. It simply is. And somehow, that honesty was enough. Then one evening, a couple asked if I'd take them out for a sunset ride. I told them I wasn't a tour guide, just a man with too much time and an old boat. They smiled and said that was exactly what they were looking for. I charged them almost nothing, but they tipped me like I'd given them something priceless. And maybe I had. Because for 2 hours we drifted in silence, and they saw what I saw, the light melting into the horizon, the waves whispering secrets older than love itself. Word spread. People came, first a few, then dozens. Some wanted to see dolphins, some wanted to scatter ashes, some just wanted to sit and breathe. I didn't say much, I just steered and let the sea do the talking. Eventually, I bought another boat. Then another. Men who'd lost their own way started working with me. Veterans, fishermen, dreamers, drifters. Together we built something that wasn't just a business. It was a kind of sanctuary. Funny, isn't it? I thought I'd lost everything that day, but maybe I was just being stripped of what wasn't meant to stay. Now, years later, I stand on the deck of my newest boat, watching the sun rise over the water. The fleet sways in the harbour, each vessel rocking gently like a heartbeat in sync with the tide. The air smells of salt and diesel and morning. Sometimes when the wind is soft and the sea is calm, I think back to that house, that door, that moment that broke me open, and I realise I'm grateful for it, because without it, I'd never have learned what it means to be truly alone without being lonely. The sea didn't save me. She taught me how to save myself. And when the day ends and the horizon burns in shades of orange and gold, I stand at the bow, close my eyes, and whisper to the waves, "Thank you." Because every storm I've faced, every loss, every silence has led me here, to this quiet freedom. And this time I'm not adrift. I'm home. You'd think that after all these years the sea would stop surprising me. But she never does. Some mornings she's gentle, smooth as glass, her surface catching the light like a mirror, showing me a man I barely recognize. Other days she roars, waves slamming against the hull as if trying to remind me who's in charge. I respect both versions of her. Maybe that's why we get along so well. Running a fleet wasn't part of the plan. At first, it was just me and Mara drifting through days that felt both endless and fleeting. But the sea has a way of connecting lost souls. One by one, they found me, people who'd fallen out of rhythm with life and needed a place to listen again. There was Elias, a quiet man who used to teach literature before his wife passed. He came to me asking for work, said he couldn't bear the silence of his apartment anymore. I gave him one of the smaller boats. He named her the Gull. Now he takes school kids out on field trips, tells them stories about myths and monsters of the deep. I hear him laugh sometimes, and it feels like the sea gave him his voice back. Then there's Clara, ex-paramedic, sharp as broken glass but gentle underneath. She runs evening charters, takes people out to watch the stars. I don't ask what brought her here. Some wounds don't need words. You can see them in the way someone looks at the horizon, like they're searching for a part of themselves they lost out there. I guess that's what we all are, a small army of mended things, held together by salt and purpose. Sometimes, I think the sea collects people like that, people who have nowhere else to go, people who've been emptied out by life and need something vast and honest to hold them. I've stopped questioning it. The sea chooses who she chooses. A few months ago we had a storm, not the usual kind. This one came out of nowhere, rolling in from the east like a wall of black glass. The wind hit hard. The radio went dead. I remember shouting orders, my voice swallowed by thunder. I was out on Mara again. I always take her myself, even after all these years. She's my anchor, my confession booth, my oldest friend. When the storm hit, I thought I'd lose her. I watched as the waves lifted her like a toy and slammed her down again. The deck groaned, ropes snapped, water poured in faster than I could bail it out. But she didn't break. Neither did I. When the storm finally passed, the sky opened up. And there it was, the calm, that eerie, holy silence that only comes after chaos. I remember sitting there, drenched, exhausted, watching the dawn bleed through the clouds. The sea steamed like she was breathing out all her anger. And for the first time in years, I cried. Not out of fear, not even out of relief, but out of gratitude that something so wild and merciless could still make me feel alive. Since then, I've changed the way I see things. The sea isn't my escape anymore. She's my reflection. Every tide, every current, they move the way I do. Restless, searching, patient. On calm nights, I sometimes sleep on deck, just me and the sound of the water lapping against the hull. I wake before dawn, the air still heavy with mist, and I watch the light stretch across the horizon. That moment, when night surrenders and day begins, it feels like forgiveness. The harbour's different now. Kids laugh on the docks. Fishermen nod to me as they pass. Tourists wave when they spot me out there. I used to think I wanted solitude forever, but I've come to understand that peace doesn't mean being alone. It means being at ease with what remains. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, if that day hadn't happened, if I hadn't walked in on her, if my life had stayed on its old course, I might never have found this. I might never have learned that loss can be a kind of grace. Now, when I take the wheel and Mara cuts through the morning fog, I don't feel broken anymore. I feel balanced, like the sea, and I finally understand each other. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not a sudden sunrise, but a slow, patient tide that washes over you again and again, until one day, without realizing it, you're whole. It's strange how time moves by the sea. You don't notice the years slipping past. They don't crash or creak. They just drift, like tides brushing the same shore over and over until the rocks grow smooth. The fleet is bigger now. 7 boats, each with her own story, her own scars. Some are faster, some carry tourists, some go out deep for fishing runs, but Mara still sits closest to my heart, tied to the same dock where I first pulled her back from the edge. She's old now, like me, but she still floats, stubborn and steady. I don't take her out as much as I used to. My knees ache when the weather changes and my hands shake a little when I tie the ropes. But when the wind is right and the sea calls softly, I still go. Always have, always will. The young ones, my crew, my family, they tell me to rest. "Captain, we've got it," they say, smiling. I laugh and let them think I'm listening. But the truth is, I don't know who I'd be without this water beneath me. The sea isn't just a place anymore, she's a part of me, running in my blood like salt and memory. Most mornings, I walk the pier before sunrise. The world feels different at that hour. Quieter, humbler. I see the gulls circle above the masts, hear the soft hum of engines waking up. Sometimes I meet people I once took out years ago, now older with children of their own. They tell me how that one trip changed something for them, how watching the sunset from my deck helped them remember what mattered. I nod, smile, listen. I never tell them that it wasn't me who changed them, it was the sea. She has a way of showing people who they are when everything else falls away. Last winter, Elias retired. Clara moved inland, said she wanted to try quiet life. I understood. Everyone leaves the sea eventually, except those who can't. I stayed. Not out of duty, but because I still have more to learn from her. You see, when I was younger, I thought healing meant forgetting. I thought I had to erase the pain, the betrayal, the storm that tore everything apart. But time taught me something gentler. Healing isn't erasing. It's learning to carry the weight without letting it drown you. Some nights when the water is calm and the stars hang low like lanterns, I sit on deck and talk to her. The sea, I mean. Not out loud, not with words, but in the quiet way of breathing in rhythm with the tide. I tell her about the years, the faces, the laughter, the loneliness that still visits sometimes. And she answers, as she always has. Not with words, but with motion. A few weeks ago, I taught a young boy to tie his first knot. His father watched from the dock, proud and quiet. The boy looked up at me and said, "Will the sea always be like this?" I smiled. "No," I said. "She changes every day. But that's what makes her beautiful." He didn't quite understand, not yet. But one day he will. I know my days of sailing far are behind me. I can feel it. The slow narrowing of the horizon, the pull of rest. And yet I'm not afraid. I've lived a life I never meant to build, but one that became truer with every wave. When my time comes, I hope it's here, by the water, with the wind whispering through the ropes and the gulls calling overhead. Maybe they'll scatter my ashes beyond the harbour, let me drift where I always belonged. And maybe, somewhere in the endless blue, I'll find her again, not the woman I lost, but the version of myself I became because of her. Until then, I'll keep walking this pier, keep watching the tides, keep breathing the salt air that reminds me of everything I was and everything I've become. Because the sea and I, we started in pain, grew through silence, and ended in peace. And when I stand at the edge and watch the horizon melt into gold, I know. I didn't conquer the sea. She taught me how to live.